And so you're able to build Nano Flips was kind of like a spin-off from those threads, or did Nano Flips exist pre-growing on Twitter?
Totally a spin off from those threads. I had no intention of doing anything. Nanoflips was just a total guess of a thing. I built those threads. People were like, "Oh, do you have a newsletter?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll build a newsletter." Put a newsletter together, and then just about like breaking down how to flip websites and stuff. And then eventually, someone was like, "Hey, you should sell a course." I was like, "Nah, I don't really want to be that guy. It's not for me." And then I was an ex girlfriend was like taking a nap, and I was like, you know what, let me just see if I can do this. And I wrote one email, and I'm like a mediocre copywriter and definitely a mediocre web designer. And I built a really crappy landing page, sales page, and I sent one email, and I had 1,300 subscribers in total at that point, which was very small. And I made 17 grand in 36 hours, and I pre-sold a course that didn't exist yet. And I was like, if I put together a course on how to do these, would you guys buy it? Here's a link. If enough of you buy it, I'll make it. And sold, 84 copies at $195 in 36 hours. And then I was like, whoa, I guess I got to build this course now. So then I built a course, and then NanoFlip has just sort of taken off since then. And I don't really push my course. It's not something I don't. The value for me with Twitter is the network, right? It's like unequivocally is the network. It is like a weird superpower. If you don't believe that it is, like if you don't believe that we're all susceptible to social proof, you're wrong. I'm just telling you right now, if your biggest celebrity or you've never met in your entire life or he looked up to you, reached out to you, and was like, hey, let's work together, you would drop. I say this to you all the time. If Elon Musk reached out to you and was like, I need $10,000 to start this next company, as long as you believed it was actually Elon Musk asking for 10 grand, you'd find a way to come up with 10 grand to do this with Elon Musk, right? So that's just positioning. That's all it is. And authority. And so having lots of followers, whether people want to admit it or not, especially if you see that your friends follow someone, you trust follow someone, um, kind of gives that person a great role of authority, position of authority. And so for me, it's become like a superpower in that regard.
And so what do you think it is about website flipping that kind of has people paying you $70,000 without a course even existing? Like, I know there's total revenue from everyone, but like, what is it about website flipping that just keeps bringing people in?
The most people that like it are like real estate people. It's sort of a new asset class. I think it was very like timing of COVID was great. I think everyone was locked in their house, and all of a sudden I was talking about a way for them to invest in something that was like that they could manage themselves without leaving their house. And so I think that was good timing. It's sort of this like blue ocean, so to speak, this blue sky. Like just like there's infinite of it, right? There's just like there are well over a billion websites. There's as long as new things in the world are created, there'll be new websites. They are very low overhead. I mostly talk about like niche content websites, so it's like there's not a lot of like you don't need a massive amount of experience or operational expertise to make them happen. And just the return on the ROI is just nutty still. I actually look back and I posted something on Twitter about this. I don't know if you saw it, but I found a post that I did on Black Hat World like 12 years ago about selling a website. And I was like, all you got to do is build a website to make $500 a month and you can sell it for $5,000, something I said, right? A 10x monthly net revenue, that is crazy. That is such a great deal. That means you're making 100%, like I could buy that property and make over 100% on it in a year. There's no investment. There's no asset class on the planet that could pay me 100% a year. And that's how new it was at the time. That's how new like idea of making money on the internet was at the time. So now, even today, the standard multiple is like a 3 to 5 year, net revenue multiple. So that means like even at a 5 year, that's $20, 20% cash on cash return unlevered, which is like really good. Like, and I tell people this all the time, like it's not fully passive. It is a little bit, you have to manage it a bit. But like if you want fully passive income, go invest in AT&T stock and get a 6% dividend yield, and that's the best you're going to get. And if they've done it for 50 years straight, right? Or the S&P will give you 1.2% dividend yield, right? You would have to look at like sort of D-class apartment rentals that probably would end up with tenants that defaulted to start finding 20, 30% cash on cash return. And what's exciting about the website flipping stuff is that's before you make any improvements, right? So it's not very difficult to find opportunities where I can find something that is to make 20% cash on cash immediately, and with some small improvements, make it 30% cash on cash immediately. And so I think people are really intrigued by that, mostly because it's great returns, but it's not like some total ridiculous, like, I'm going to make you $100,000 next month. You're going to get rich doing this. Like, it's not that. It's not at all. So I think people like that it's real and it seems manageable to them.
And so how much time, like if you were to buy a content website, like I hear buying a content website and I just think of the amount of time I put in a week doing content for my podcast and stuff, like how much time is actually required to buy and flip websites?
Sure. I think it really depends. I think that for your podcast, I'd be blown away if you didn't put in a ton of time. But if you bought a niche blog about iPhone cases, I can promise you wouldn't need to put nearly the amount of effort that you do into making content about iPhone cases. In fact, you wouldn't have to write said content yourself about iPhone case reviews. Um, what I tell people is that, like, at a bare minimum, have there been websites that I've owned that I didn't touch for a month straight? For sure. Was that a good idea? Absolutely not. So what I tell people is that at a bare minimum, you want to have a couple hours a week you can dedicate to something, um, and that you're going to get out what you put in. If we're talking about growing through organic search or growing through social, like, it's really just, are you going to put in more work? But maintaining, I would say if you were to buy some niche blog about microphones or iPhone cases or something, or dogs, right? I don't know. I would say that needed a couple hours a week to be able to write a fresh piece of content and build a couple backlinks to it. Or like post on social media. The question is, do you want to maintain it or do you want it to grow? Right. And if you want it to grow, then it's a question of getting out what you put in. If you want to maintain it, it's about finding stable websites that have been, consistent in growing traffic and consistently in the SERPs for multiple years, um, and just making sure that you don't rock the boat too much. If that makes sense.
And then what are some of those things if you're maintaining? And granted, if we're veering too far into what you cover in Nano Flips, like let me know. We don't have to talk
No,
about
no, I
any of
don't
that
care.
right
Let's
here.
talk about. I'll tell everyone about everything. Yeah, for sure.
And so, like, I know you have like a checklist of things you look for in a website. So, what are some of
Sure.
those things you look for in a content website that you can just go in right away and quickly change to increase the revenue if you just want to maintain it and not grow it?
So, shout out to Ezoic, which is like, it's funny. I literally have the Ezoic shirt here, but base at the bare minimum, like, most people put AdSense and Amazon Associates. These are the most common ways of monetizing content sites. That is the lazy man's monetization. There is, I would change the ad network is like the first most obvious thing, or it's not really change the ad network. That's a much longer explanation about like header bidding and how like demand works in ad networks. But point is, I would use Ezoic or like a Mediavine or an AdThrive, something that basically does ad ops, where they like will set up header bidding between 20 different ad networks at once, so that the highest bid for ads on your website is placed, optimize where the ads are, etc. That is going to be the like, if you find a website that is on AdSense, that is monetization comes from AdSense, and you switch it to Ezoic, I can just tell you, I never guarantee anyone anything, but like with 99.9% guarantee that you will make more money. Maybe it's 10% more, maybe it's 100% more. I don't know. But that's the most basic, obvious one. Then with like Amazon Associates, there's like, are you using comparison tables when you talk about products? These are like weird, like, are you using the right affiliate programs? Can you get higher payout on an offer if you're using an affiliate program to monetize? Or if you're on Amazon Associates, for example, most people set up just like Amazon US. Is 2% of your traffic coming from Germany? If they are, you should also be setting it on a rotator so that when someone from Germany clicks, they're taking to Amazon Germany, like into that program. Another one that's like not an immediate switch, but I like a lot is building newsletters. Like, I'm a huge newsletter fan. So most people would think, like, obviously it's not gonna work for your iPhone blog, but like, say you talk about dogs, golden retrievers, um, and you were getting 100,000 visits a month, right, from organic search, or from social, wherever you're getting 100,000 visits a month. And in content sites, normally you have like someone visits you and you're like a bridge. And then if you're lucky, they click an ad, but you never see them ever again, right? That's all you are to them. And then they become somebody else's customer. So I think there's like a major opportunity to build niche newsletters. And I've done this with the marijuana stuff, right? The cannabis stuff, where you just aggregate content, and become the source of trusted content. So golden retriever, building a newsletter about golden retriever for golden retriever owners. And then every week you're just sending out a newsletter that comes with aggregated content, some from you want to bring them back to your blog, make more ad revenue, perfect, and some from just Petco and wherever. Set up a Google alert, set up content, Raza, these different tools. There's a major opportunity there, and then you can bring people back to your website by having your content you put in the newsletter link back to your page, and then eventually you can sell sponsorship in that as well, or send out affiliate offers. But let's say you're getting 100,000 visits a month. Let's say you can capture 3% into a newsletter. Okay, so let's forget churn for a second because I don't want to run back of the envelope math on churn. But let's just say 2% because some people are like 3%. Sorry, let's say 2%. For sure, you should be able to get 2% to an email list. 2% is 25,000 people a year at that rate, right? 2,000 people a month, 12 months, 24,000, 2 years, or 50,000 subs. I can tell you for sure, 50,000 subscribers that are actively opening and reading your emails are probably going to end up being worth more to you than the actual website was, right? So like the idea with the site flipping stuff and Nano flips is like, how do we find these immediate changes? Affiliate networks, ad networks, comparison tables, changing titles and meta descriptions so that in SERPs you look more interesting when people are searching for you. There's a whole bunch of different shit. But how do we find like 5 or 6 things that make like a 2 or 3% difference immediately that are really just best practices that the old owner didn't implement because they seem too minuscule or they just overlooked them. So in month one, we're trying to capture like 10 to 15% change pretty immediately. And then we look at like what is SEO or organic social or newsletters that we build out over the next 6 to 12 months. So this is like really a minimum year-long process, 6 to 12 process. But by then, at the end of the year, you've maybe increased that revenue by 25, 30%. And if a website is selling for 3 times yearly revenue, then you just added a whole year's revenue to it. So anyway, you get my point.
Is there like a certain like value of website? Is it buying $1,000 website? Is that worth it? Someone hearing this, like they might not want to throw $15,000-$20,000 at a website right away, but like, what is there like kind of like a minimum requirement to the price of website you should be looking at if you want to get into this?
So this is a moving target and not going to be a hard and fast rule. But what I normally tell people is that like at the bare minimum, you're going to want $5,000 or $10,000. Like if you're going to flip a website, because the flipping implies that we're finding inefficiencies that exist and making them better, right? And so like, but sub that, there's not many inefficiencies to find because there's just nothing happening, right? So if a website sells for, let's say, just for the sake of it, 50x on monthly revenue. So okay, so a $5,000 website's making $100 a month. Okay, so if I change revenue by 10%, great, you made $10 more a month. It's not really going to be that significant to you until the flip portion of it, which is great. But what I say is that 5 or 10K is the minimum. I'd say that the stuff that I talk about and teach probably works sub $1 million. At above $1 million, you find like a much more sophisticated pool of buyers. You find a much more sophisticated pool of sellers that have maxed out things a lot. But then sub 5K, there's definitely opportunities. I often are suggesting that people go look at like buying an expired domain at sub 5K, like going and spending $1,500 on a great domain name that somebody tried to build something on that totally failed and already has 3,000 backlinks that would have taken you 2 years to build, and building on that, and you're going to start ranking much more more quickly. And then sub 3K, I just don't think this is the world for you. Like unless you're going to find someone to partner with you that's going to fund you or that has a website, you know what I mean? But five is the bottom I say for flipping for sure.